Hi, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use buffers in Vim to edit multiple files. The buffer is basically a place in memory that Vim uses to store content of the file to be displayed or edited. So when you do text editing in Vim, you do it in a buffer and the file will not be modified until you save it. I'm going to show you some commands for adding a buffer, switching between buffers, and removing a buffer. First, to create a buffer, you can simply open an existing file or create a new one. For example, I'll open a file named hello.py using edit command. Vim will create a new buffer for it automatically. When you see content of the file, you are seeing it from the buffer. Now we can use this new buffer for editing. To look at a list of all buffers, you can use list command. The list is displayed at the bottom of the screen. Now you can see that we only have one buffer in the list. From left to right, the list displays the unique ID for each buffer, the status of the buffer name, and where the cursor is in the buffer. For this buffer, the %sign indicates that this is the current window, and the lowercase a indicates that the buffer is active. To go back to the current buffer, you just hit enter. Now I'm going to open another file to new buffer using badd command, followed by a file name and hit enter. Badd command lets you open a file into a new buffer without switching to it. Let's look at the list again. Right now we have two buffers. We can switch between the buffer in the list using the buffer command, followed by the buffer ID or the buffer name. For example, I can type buffer2 to switch to the buffer number 2 in the list. And then I can go back to the first one by typing buffer1. You can also use buffer name instead. For example, to go to buffer number 2, I type buffer array.c. And I can go back to the first one by typing buffer hello.py. We can also go to the next buffer in the list using bn command. For example, from the first one to go to the second one, I can type bn. And I can go back to a previous buffer using bp command. To remove the buffer from the list, you can use bd or bdelete command, followed by the buffer ID or the buffer name. For example, I can delete buffer number 2 by typing bdelete number 2. And then we can look at the list again. Now you can see that the buffer number 2 has been removed. Thanks for watching this tutorial.